Hi guys, thanks for joining me today. I'm Marilyn and my channel's Making with Marilyn. Now on this video, I'm going to do a new trendy thing, and that's to make a faux DTF transfer, or some people call it a DTF sublimation hack. Now I have most of the things I'm going to use right here. I have some tape, I have the DTF powder, I have DTF film. Now this and the powder was sent to me by this company, Sublimation. And so I appreciate that. It tells you this is the print side. So when you take your film out, it's kind of hard to tell the print side from the not print side. So you always want to take it out and pay attention to which side is up, which side is down. Now once you get familiar with this, you can tell which is which, but in the beginning it's pretty tough. Now I've already done a test project. Let me show that to you. This is just some extra old fabric I keep in my craft room. And this is what I printed. It turned out beautiful. So I want to show you the process. And basically, I'm going to make that same transfer, but I'm going to put it on a gray shirt. Now, the absolute trickiest part to this whole thing is getting your print to print out on this film. I have two sublimation printers, and I really fought with them to get it to print. First, I tried to just put the film in. That didn't work. Then I put some painter's tape on the back side. That didn't work. So the third time was the charm, and here's what I did. I took just a regular piece of printer paper, and then I have my film just barely slightly down from the top of it. I just wanted to give it something to stick to. Now one thing to note is the size of film that I received really isn't 8.5 by 11. And that can make a difference when you're printing. So if you're lucky enough to get this to print through without attaching it to paper, whatever software you're using to print it, you probably need to change your document size to the size of this paper. Now, since I'm using a regular size piece of paper, I don't need to do that. All right, so I'm just going to tape at the very top my film to my copy paper or my printer paper. And I'm going to use 3 small pieces of tape. So then I tried to feed that through the printer, and that still wouldn't work. The film was trying to separate from the copy paper. So then what I did is I came down about halfway and I taped it on the sides. Now I tried to print all of these through the back slot, the paper drawer, and eventually the only way I was successful is feeding this in from the back with the film attached to the paper. So let's go ahead and do that now. So I printed my image on plain paper setting, and I just used normal quality. I didn't want a lot of ink on this film because the ink is just going to sit on top. All right, I want you to see there are some roller marks. That's one of the downsides of this. With this film, that ink stays wet and it can drag it off to the side like that. So I'm going to try to deal with that, and I'll show you how. But the first thing that I want to do before this ink starts drying is I want to go ahead and powder the back of it. Now this powder is actually an adhesive powder. So I'm going to pour a liberal amount on top of this, and I'm just going to pour it mainly down here at this end. You can put back in the bag anything you don't use. And then I'm just going to take my design and I'm going to lift this edge of the paper so that it rolls that powder over my entire design. All right, so it's all the way down to the end, but you want to make sure you get every bit of this design. So I'm just going to turn it and come back this way. Now once you get this powder on, you're going to see kind of a snowy white on top of your design. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and dump off all the excess, and I'm going to tap my paper to get off as much of the excess I can. To get off as much of the excess as I can. And hopefully you can see that powder on there. I think you can. It kind of has a white tint. All right, I'm going to leave the paper on the back for the next step. So the next step is we need to get this powder to cure. And as it cures, it's going to become very much translucent. You'll be able to see through it. The other thing is, I'm going to cure it at a temperature that's high enough that that sublimation ink turns vibrant. So you know how when you use sublimation ink, it's kind of dull at first, then you add the heat and it gets bright? While this adhesive is curing to that ink, I want my ink to get enough heat that it goes ahead and changes colors. Now, while I'm waiting for that to heat up, I told you I'm going to try to deal with this extra ink on here. And what I want to do is, I want to rub the powder off of that, because the powder is what makes that stick to your shirt. I'm going to put this on a cotton shirt, and so in theory, this sublimation ink should not sublimate into the cotton shirt. And so if there's no DTF powder on that ink, it should work that doesn't show up on my shirt. Now the smart thing to do would be to use like a Q-tip or something where you can really see what you're doing. Oh no, I wiped some of the powder off. And when you wipe some of that powder off, you also kind of mess up your ink. So hopefully this turns out okay. That's why I should have had a Q-tip. All right, I think that's going to be okay. Yeah, that doesn't look bad at all. So again, all I'm trying to do is make sure there's no powder on top of this extra ink. Now, because I used the setting of plain paper, it went through very quickly, and there's not an abundance of ink on there. With this being film, you don't need an abundance of ink on there. All right, I'm going to quit messing with it because I keep touching it. Now I'm preheating my heat press to 395 because again, I want to go ahead and get that sublimation ink activated and have it turn bright. So the way that I was curing this powder, and they're really more like crystals, but the way I was curing this was to put it under the platen of my heat press. So I put it in for 60 seconds at 395, and when I looked at it, I could see some of the crystals were still crystals. So I turned it just a little bit, 90 degrees, and I put it back in for 60 more seconds. Now this time when I pulled it out, I could see that that powder had melted and was ready to go. But I could also see that it really revealed those roller marks. They look nasty, but I'm going to deal with that. All right, I think that looks pretty good. Now that really activated even those roller marks. You can see that. So I'm going to let this go ahead and cool off. I want that to get kind of rubbery and really attached well to the film. Now at this point, it's gone ahead and it's cooled off, and that feels really good. It's like orange peel. So I can go ahead and take my film off the paper backing. You could have done this before. It's just I was afraid that either the ink would run or I would just mess it up. To me, it was safer just to leave it on until after I have this cured. Then when I'm doing sublimation, I usually tear around my design. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and cut around it. So I can cut off a lot of those roller marks, not all of them. Hopefully the ones between the letters just don't even show up. I didn't really rub the powder off, and I can feel some powder there. So before I put this on my shirt, I want to see if I can't kind of scratch some of that off. All right, I'm going to finish just scratching off a little bit more of this, and I have my other heat press heated up to 325. So I'm going to heat this up at 325. Let me make sure I'm following the instructions correctly. Okay, I'm going to do 325 for 10 seconds. And it says you want very firm pressure. Then you're going to let it cool just for 10 seconds and then peel the film off. All right, we are going to call that good. Now my design isn't very big. I kind of printed it at the wrong size, but that's okay. It is so cute. It's big enough. Now, just like anything else I do, I went ahead and pre-pressed my shirt. I wanted to remove any moisture and I wanted to get a nice smooth surface. All right, I think that looks good. Now, if you're placing this while you're over your heat press, you probably don't need to put tape down. I'm going to carry it over there. I don't want it to move, so I'm going to put just a little bit of heat tape on this. Then the other thing is, when I press this, you don't really need to cover this because this is film, but I can feel a few of those crystals on the top of it, and so for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and put some paper over this. And that's just to protect my heat press. All right, it's probably been close to 10 seconds getting it over here. So let's go ahead and peel this off. And that is very dark, very pretty. Look at that. Now, one thing about this method is you don't print white with sublimation. So if there's any white in your design, you're going to see the color of the shirt through it. Now, most of the things that I make are things like spirit shirts and school shirts, so that's probably not going to be an issue for me. But this is so smooth. It is so light. It feels great. Now, one of the suggestions is if you don't want it to be glossy, and really this isn't glossy, let me show it to you. That has a great look. But one of the suggestions is go ahead, put parchment paper over it and do it for about 10 more seconds. So that's what I'll do. I love this. Oh, that's hot. But it is so nice. Now let me see if my shirt is stuck together at all, and it's not. So that's good. But look how beautiful that is. So, so pretty. No layering of vinyl. No peeling printable vinyl off and putting it on a shirt. This is really in there. I mean, I can barely feel it. It is not the feel of vinyl at all. To me, it's not even the feel of a very thin screen print. I can barely feel it. Now you can see some of the heathered tones of the shirt kind of coming through that basketball. And again, that's because it's sublimation ink, and sublimation ink is not see-through, but it's not as solid as a true DTF ink. I think it's fantastic. I would say this is a big success. All right, it stretches. Let me stretch it and then show it to you. You don't even see where it's stretched. I'm going to do this time and time again. I love this. Now, one thing is, I haven't washed anything I've done this with yet, because the first thing I did earlier today, and it was on that fabric I showed you earlier. So I'll do some wash tests on this, and then I'll just post in my community, or I'll post a short, something to let you know how it comes out. So again, thank you so much to Yamation for sending me the powder and the film. And also thanks to Craftable Things for putting a video out there, Angel Bee Designs for putting a video out there. Those are the ones I can remember watching. I know I watched a couple more, but those were the ones that I really relied on to do this project. If you liked the video, found it entertaining, or it was helpful to you at all, please give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. Tap the bell, select the all notification. That way YouTube lets you know anytime I upload new content. So until my next video, bye-bye.